G'day mate, 40 here. So when the water's flowing down your drain, no problem, there's no backup. Do you go, snake your drain when everything's flowing just fine? No, you don't snake your drain when the water's flowing through just fine. When you snake the drain, it's when water's pooling and taking too much time to go down your bathtub or go down your sink. Then you snake the drain, right? Then you start sending wires and stuff down the drain and try to unclog the hairballs and any of the gunk. And usually after you do that, then the water just flows down the drain. But if you don't unclog the drain, then the water kind of backs up in your sink or in your bathtub, and it just leaves, gunky film all over your bathtub or over your sink. So you have to do more cleaning, and the problem never gets better on its own, right? It just builds and builds and builds until you take care of it. And so I don't think most people would benefit, be better off with, a 40 and level of introspection. I just don't think that would help most people. I did 10 years of psychotherapy. I don't think most people would benefit from 10 years of psychotherapy. I've participated in 5 different 12-step programs. I don't think most people need to be in 5 different 12-step programs. I typically spend 20-30 minutes a day just writing out everything that comes to me, writing everything that I'm grateful for, writing everything that I've done right, just writing down everything that comes to mind, writing about, okay, if I was feeling jealousy or pettiness right now or insecurity, what would it be about? And just journal everything that comes to my mind. And I don't think most people would necessarily benefit that much. So when I just write out everything that comes to my mind, it's like unclogging the drain. So usually I get ideas like this wonderful live stream that I'm doing right now. Okay, this came about because I unclogged the drain. I picked up my journal and I just started writing everything that was coming to me. And so then as a result, I get to share the gift of this live stream with you. And just a few minutes ago, I was like unclogging my bathtub drain, just sending that snake down there, and then pumping it with the plunger, and then now everything's flowing much better. It's a really satisfying sound hearing the water gurgle down the sink. So when do you know whether you need to unclog your drain? When you've got a problem. So for example, I sometimes think about something I said approximately in 7th grade to a friend of the family who'd been staying with us for about a week. Then after about a week, I said to the dude, how much longer are you going to stay here eating our food? And like every time I think about that, I wince because he's been a good friend of the family, incredibly generous. It was such an ugly, awkward, stupid thing that I said, and I still can't think about it without wincing. Or some of the aggressive ways that I've pursued women at Jewish singles events, or the inappropriate humor that I've used when the rabbi is reciting Kiddush. And sometimes I still think about these things, and it's like, ugh. Right? So I'm assuming that indicates something, that if I can't think about an event or some awkward thing I've said without just flinching, maybe there's still some more unclogging of the drain I need to do. But I don't think most people need like a 40 and level of introspection. But if things are getting clogged up in your life, then you need to unclog the drain, right? If you can't talk about certain events with having weird facial contortions and your voice dropping off, then that's probably something that you need to explore and come to peace with. If there are certain people who are habitually triggering you, then therapy or a 12-step program or some kind of mechanism for unclogging the drain. For some people, they'll find it in their religion. In Judaism, we call it Heshbon HaNefesh, where you examine the soul. But if the water's flowing, like if your emotions are flowing, if your reactions to life are flowing and they're not getting in your way, you're not having reactions to stimuli that are setting you back, then then you probably don't need to unclog the drain. You don't need to go to 40 levels of introspection and psychotherapy and 12-step. But if there are things that you're not doing in your life, like if there's a woman that you need to hit on and ask out, if there's like a better job that you need to apply for, if there are situations in your community you need to step up to, if you have health problems you're not taking care of. So if things are getting clogged up, if you're suffering from back pain or skin diseases or digestion problems, most health problems that we suffer are the result, likelihood, said Dr. John Sarno, of repressed unconscious rage. So if you're suffering from back pain, neck pain, repetitive strain industry, there was no repetitive strain industry 50 years ago. How come we've only had, in the whole history of the human race, we've only had repetitive strain injury in the last 30 years? Like, why do we have this epidemic of back pain when we know through radiographic studies there's no difference in the radiographic studies of people with back pain and people who don't have back pain? So you can point, oh, I've got an annular tear here, I've got a slip disc here. Well, all those things that you point at and assume these are the causes of your pain. Well, there are lots of other people with the exact same sort of problems, but they don't have any pain. So if your life is being compressed and made smaller by these debilitating health problems for which there's no objective cause that can be found, there's no medical cause that can be found, then it's very likely psychosomatic, a result of repressed rage. So your own fear, bitterness, anger, petty feelings, desire for love, the things that you're blocking off and you're refusing to accept that you're experiencing, they're coming back at you through attacking your body to distract you so that you don't have these painful realizations. So if the water's clogging up in your life, if your emotions are clogging up, your health is clogging up, your digestion is clogging up, if you're having unsatisfying relationships with people, if you're running into continual issues at work or at your church, then you've got problems that are clogging up your drain. But if everything's flowing, then who needs these Luke Ford levels of introspection? Like, who needs therapy? Who needs 12-step programs? Who needs 30 minutes of journaling every day? So if your drain needs to be snaked, then snake it. And for some people, I think this means psychotherapy, and for other people, it means 12-step program. For other people, it means talking to their pastor. But it's good to snake the drain of our own soul to see what are we envious of, what are we resentful of, what's going on under the surface. That's why I love journaling. It's just a mirror to the mind. And so instead of going around unconscious and just repeating certain responses to stimuli that don't serve us. So, for example, I spent much of my life where I just automatically hated anyone who reminded me of my father. I remember going into therapy one time and talking about an engagement party I'd just been at. And these girls, I saw these women greet each other, and they just like ran over to each other and they hugged each other and they kind of jumped up and down and they said, "Oh, it's so wonderful to see you." And so I was telling my therapist, this is so stupid. These women, these young women, just like jumping up and down and hugging each other and saying how wonderful it was to see each other. How stupid is that? And my therapist said, "Well, do you wish that had been you?" Oh, yeah, I kind of did. I felt very much on the periphery of that party. So my response to people doing what I wished that I was doing was to think, oh, how stupid these people are. But then my therapist caught me and he said, "Well, do you wish that was you?" Oh, I remember another time I went to therapy and I said, "I'm not sure anyone at my synagogue even cares about me." I mean, this is many, many, many years ago. And my therapist said, "Well, do you care about anyone at your synagogue?" Oh, there's a good question. So the therapy helped snake my drain, the drain of my soul. I would just come in there and start rambling, but
then we get down to brass tacks, and my therapist would confront me over certain things, like, why aren't you looking for a better job? So for years and years, I made peace with a very mediocre job. And my therapist would try to prompt me to look for a better job, and it didn't do any good until I went to a 12-step program that addressed debting, and a 12-step program that addressed under-earning. And then by going to those 12-step programs, it provided me with tools and a community and sponsors and ways to unclog my drain so that my life didn't just settle in my bathtub like water that wouldn't drain down the hole. So it always feels good when you can unclog the drain of your bathtub or your sink, and then suddenly it starts working again. Or your vacuum cleaner doesn't work, and you figure it out, and you get rid of the gunk, and now it's all working again. And I think same too with our psyche, that if we're stuck with a feeling of malaise or low-level depression or anxiety or fear, or just we're just concerned that our life isn't progressing, then snake the drain. Like, sit down, journal. What am I grateful for? What have I done right? What am I yearning for? What do I wish? What am I thinking about? Just write it all out. And the writing becomes a mirror to the mind, and it starts to unclog the drain so that everything can start flowing again. So that the circle of abundance can start flowing again. Money can start flowing again. Ideas can start flowing again. Relationships can start flowing again. So that I can start to encounter people as they are, rather than just as projections of my past experience that I then put onto people. So I love this analogy of unclogging the drain. I just had a very successful occasion, unclogging a drain, and it feels wonderful to see all the water flowing again. And then I felt so good. I was sitting down with my air conditioning on. It's 82 degrees outside, but in Casa Ford, it's very pleasant, 75 degrees. Just writing out everything that comes to my mind. And I thought, I really like that analogy of unclogging the drain. Unclogging the drain of the soul, unclogging the drain of the psyche, unclogging the drain of self-defeating habits in the workplace. It's time to do some depth work, time to do some soul work, some excavation of the soul. Cheers.